Do you wave your terrible towel when Renegade plays? Reach for a tasty cake when JJ shouts, "He scores!" Does the sound of an F1 engine make your heart race? Doing push-ups with the Nittany Lion after a TD? Then lend us an ear, and we will share the exhilaration of Steelers football, the excitement of Flyers hockey, the nail-biting finishes of F1, and the pride when we yell, "We are Penn State." Welcome to the SteelFlyers Show, the strangest combination of sports fandom since pineapple was put on pizza. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SteelFlyers Show. We've got a very special show for you today. The SteelFlyers All Sports Network is proud to present Jim Jackson, the voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. How about that, Jim? Welcome to the show. How you doing, sir?
Great to be here. I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. Ready to talk some hockey. We got the great and wonderful Pearlo Wisdom. How you doing, Pearlo?
Oh, amazing, dude. Talking hockey in the morning.
Man.
How could it be wrong?
That's right. And completing the ensemble is the Professor Joe. How you doing, Pro Joe?
Doing well. Always good to talk hockey. Always great to talk Flyers hockey, especially going into playing the Rangers, who we should be able to beat, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Really appreciate Jim joining us today for taking time out of your busy schedule. Appreciate that. How have you been, Jim?
Hey, Ron, not so busy.
Not so busy?
Yeah, we don't do another game until Saturday. That'll be one game in 22 days for us.
Oh, wow.
Mainly because of COVID, but also because NBC has been doing a ton of our games lately, the mothership. So this is fine. I could have done this 5 or 6 times over the last week.
Well, does it give you an opportunity to do more of your Jim Jackson broadcasting school?
Well, it would have if I had known we were going to have this break, but obviously COVID is what caused most of it. We missed broadcasts, so kind of tough. You have to get the word out there. And then, I could have gone full bore but then we didn't know we were going to have this time. So, but they've gone very well. It slowed down now that the season started. I like to somehow figure out a way to do 2 or 3 students a month, but it's tough. You go full bore with advertising, you end up with a lot. And if you don't advertise at all, you end up with none. So we have to find some kind of happy medium.
Okay. So, check out Jim Jackson's School of Broadcasting in between the breaks and in between games. Yeah, there you go.
Check it out, jjbroadcastingcoaching at gmail.com. But it is very limited. I know early on we were saying it was limited, but we opened it up pretty well. Now it is limited. I got to take 2 or 3 a month. That's about it. But it's great because I want to give each student full time. I don't want to just run through them. So
go check it out though.
Yeah, it's been great. 2 of the 3 people here have participated, and it's been great. I've met a lot of people who want to get into the business in different ways, different forms, at different ages. It's just been great, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Awesome. That's great, man. We appreciate it. Joe, you got to go through the class, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that was a pretty good deal, right?
It was awesome. I learned a lot from the class. As you see, I do a little bit more of the nodding and stuff now. Yeah.
Watching that. Oh, yes.
Starting to pick up on that a little bit more. But that's something everyone learns. We saw the video before the NBC game. Teaching the next generation is learned from the legend himself, which is Doc Emmerich, who just retired. That whole documentary thing before the game was about how many people he mentored to be the next best things in the business.
And one of them sitting here.
Including Jim. Yeah.
That's right.
He's great with it. Eddie basically said they're family, which is true. Those two are pretty much family. And they were one of the best duos. So was Doc and Bill. Both of them were great. You obviously wish him the best. I don't think he's ever going to fully step away. He still does a lot of audio stuff. He's too in love with the game. But it's good that he now says I should probably spend more time with my wife, who I've been married to for 40 years. That's given me every time in the world to be away from her to work. So that's pretty much what he said in the doc.
And what he also didn't mention there is he loves his dogs. He is, if you remember, Doc missed an Olympics because one of his dogs was not doing well. So he loves his animals too. So he didn't mention that in the piece, but that was an outstanding documentary. It was great. And that shows you how long Doc's been around, that he had long-standing broadcasting relationships with not only Eddie Olczyk, but also Bill Clement, also John Davidson, Chico Resch. I mean, there's been so many guys that he worked with for a long time. And because I'm starting to feel that way myself, and Gary Dornhofer, Jones, Bill Clement. But I mean, it's like you develop those relationships, and you're going to get the true scoops from those guys that worked with you. They see you in your good times and your bad. I don't think Doc has many bad, but it's just it was a great piece. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I think that was one that I enjoyed as well too, and really appreciate the fact that they're giving him the opportunity to kind of get some of this information out there that not everybody gets to see on a regular basis. You know what I mean? And you get to see more of the guy behind the voice. You know what I mean? And that's what I like.
When they had him recall it wasn't awesome maybe for us because it was obviously against us, but to have him recall the Patrick Kane goal in 2010 was funny, the way he did it. And then, you know, he gets done with the call and he looks at the camera. Or did he?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny.
I know Doc is an absolute perfectionist, and that will always bother him that he didn't get that call. But nobody, I've listened to all the calls, the 2 radio calls, the Canadian national call. No one really saw that puck go into the net except maybe Patrick Kane. So I don't think he should be too hard on himself, but you can tell it still bothers him.
Well, you know, it's something when you have somebody like that has that kind of, I mean, you're like that a lot, Jim. You have those same kind of qualities, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he's the GOAT, and I appreciate you saying that, but we all try to be perfect.
Right.
You seek perfection, and some of the lucky ones get to settle for excellence, which is certainly the case in Doc's case.
Exactly.
I still think they should, because he didn't get to go off in the sunset in normalcy. If there's some normalcy in this playoffs, I think NBC should be like, yo, Doc, Stanley Cup. Want to call the Stanley Cup? And then have him just ride off into the sunset, calling the Stanley Cup if it's in more of a normal situation.
But do that. I don't think Doc would do that because he would feel he's stepping on whoever's called the games up to that point. You know, it'll probably be John Forsland or Mike Tirico by the looks of things. If they're calling the whole series and then they call Doc in to call the clincher, Doc knows as broadcasters, we hate it. I hate it when we can't do the games in the playoffs. So it would be tough for a guy to do the whole run. And then even though it's Doc and they would all say the right thing, but it would still be tough to then have someone else call. And I don't think, and I know Doc, he's very sensitive to that. I can't imagine he'd want to step in that regard. I do feel bad, though. I agree with you, Joe, that he didn't get to go out in a regular season. He calls his last Stanley Cup final from his house, which, you know, there's neat about that too, but it's still not really, there's no fans. It's just not
the same.
Not the same. So yeah. I would wish that. I felt that way about Bill too. Bill Clement retiring. I said, Bill, you sure you want to go out and you know, in a season where we did the games off TVs and things, but for Bill it was bigger picture. Just in his life he was ready to retire. I talked to Larry Anderson on the Philly side, and he didn't want to retire off of a season where they didn't have fans last year. So he came back this year, even though some people were saying maybe he was thinking about retiring. So, yeah, you know, it's different strokes for different folks. I would probably want to end it with fans in the building, you know, have that crack at it. But
yeah, exactly. Can't argue with that. You can't argue with that because you know, it's a whole different sight when you have a stadium full of fans as compared to, you know, you're in your house and, okay, you just called the Stanley Cup and, well, that's great. You can sit down and have a glass of wine with your wife. You know what I mean? Like, all right.
Hey, there are advantages. Believe me, I'm
not taking anything away from that.
For about the last 10 years, and it's pretty fun to wrap up the show and go right to bed.
I'm with you.
It's a late West Coast game or something, or as you say, have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever right after, or jump in the pool right after you're done. But yeah, just the Stanley Cup final, the you know, the crowning moment of the season. You want that to be surrounded with the fans and the whole atmosphere.
Exactly. The fanfare and everything. Exactly. Yeah. Well, speaking of fanfare, we got some Flyers to talk about here, and all right. I'm going to start with the positives first, okay? Because
sigh. I was waiting for the first steel sigh of the broadcast. There it was.
There it was. All right. I like to start with the positives first. We're at the quarter mark, and we wanted to kind of bring everybody together and kind of get your opinions about how the Flyers have been playing up to this point. Okay. And we also have a couple of questions that I want to get into about why we think the Flyers are kind of playing the way they are, or, maybe I just want to get your opinion on certain things. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of go a little bit around the robin here and kind of get everybody's first take. So we'll start off with Pearlo. And Pearlo, we're at the quarter mark of the season. And what do you think of the Flyers so far right now? Give me your number one thing about the Flyers right now.
Well, it's so tough to judge with what they've gone through here, the adversity and with COVID and all of that. I think they're a strong team. They're trying to learn now to be a championship team. And I think it's really great that they get to play a lot of games against a team like Boston to learn what that looks like. And I don't think they're there at this moment. I think they will be. But as far as the pieces in place to be able to do that,
yeah,
I think that they pretty much have it. There's some you could add to the defense, and I'm a little concerned with Carter Hart. I never thought I was going to say that going into this series, or going into the season, I should say. That was like the last thing I was going to say here, is that I'm a little concerned for Carter Hart. I do think that has something to do with some serious defensive issues that's happened with additions, specifically Gustafsson. I really think Gustafsson is a disaster for goaltenders, honestly. I mentioned that when they acquired him, I was really not, I didn't leave anything on the table there. I said it straight out. I didn't like it right from the get-go. I didn't get it. I don't understand it. I still don't. And I've been watching Carter, because he's from Sherwood Park here. The biggest thing I know about Carter Hart, or have known about Carter Hart, is the guy does not do that, where he does a two-hander to the post with the stick and shows that kind of frustration. The most impressive thing about Carter Hart growing up to this point has been that nothing seems to bother the kid, and something's bothering the kid, obviously. And I'm just putting my 2 cents in there that if I was a goaltender and I was staring at the back of some of the moves that are being made, I would be that would be what's bothering me, especially when you have a specific person coughing up the puck at that rate. It's really annoying. Now, I think he probably did that more upset with himself, knowing what I know about Carter Hart in a lot of ways, or at least trying to portray that he was upset with himself.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to come right out and say, whatever. But the defensive issues with this team has been, it's out of joint. It's just not, and it's not, I don't want to put it all on Goose here, but he's really a problem. So as far as, I think that will get settled though. I think that there are ways to change that, to maybe add some pieces or what have you. My next issue, I guess you would say, and I still think this is going to be overcome, is to be a team that plays to win rather than plays not to lose. And I thought in the playoffs, when against Montreal, they won, but they didn't win as a team that is playing to win. They won as a team that had more talent than the opposition, but played not to lose. And then when they got over to the Islanders, well, the Islanders are going to destroy a team like that. And that is in that mindset. So they're learning the mindset of playing a game to win that game. If we're gonna lose, it's because we were trying to win, maybe over aggressive rather than sitting back on their heels. So that's what I'm saying right now. Now, as far as where they are right now, I think on paper they're still a playoff team. They're going to be great. I'm sure Carter Hart will figure things out there, but this has been a lot of turmoil and stuff. And overall, they have the pieces to get over adversity. Hayes, Couturier, Giroux. They have guys there to settle all this down and regroup and move forward. I think they're going to be fine.
Okay. Wow. All right. Jim, can you expand on that? Can you give me your 3 cents?
Back there.
Yeah, right. You get a much different view of things than what we do, because you actually get to see a little bit more closely the players as far as being on the ice and things of that nature. But
not closer to them this year, though. Obviously.
Well, okay, right, I got you. But
usually that's the one thing outside of the fans in the building that I miss is not being able to talk to the players other than on these Zooms, which are kind of like press conferences. So it's not like you can. Usually, my strategy in a locker room is to the cameras and the main group will go to one guy. It's usually Giroux or Carter or somebody like that, and I'll go to somewhere else and do a one-on-one and just sit and chat, and I get way better stuff that way.
Exactly.
I can't do that this year, so
yeah.
I don't feel like I have a hand on the pulse of what the players are feeling. We talk pretty regularly to the coaches. As rights holders, we get to talk to at least either AV or one of the assistants before every game, and that's just us. So I do get better information there. And I will say a lot of what Pearl said, I agree with. I'm not as concerned about Carter, only because he had a bad game in Boston when he did the stick swinging thing. He gave up 2 that he shouldn't have given up, if that's a bad game. I see some goalies who give up 2 and it's not even a bad game.
Right.
Not good at all in the outdoor game. But the outdoor game is, for goalies, is really weird. There was no, especially this outdoor game, there was no depth perception at all. He was clearly having trouble with that. So I'm going to write that one off. I'm not really the game the other day, the outdoor game. The one up in Boston, he gave up a couple. The team got destroyed in that game. It wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have won that game. Right. Outside of that, there have been a lot of games this year where he's given up 4 goals, and he's still been one of the best players. Mm-hmm. The team is not playing well in front of their goaltenders. Brian Elliott's been, by the way, outstanding. But
agreed.
Yep. The team has been outshot by, I haven't added the last game to the total, but I believe it's now over 150 shots.
Yep.
The next closest team is like minus 70, minus 60. They're at like 150. You do the math. They're getting outplayed by, and of course, there's quality of shot, there's quantity of shot, but in watching the games, those numbers are pretty indicative of the territorial play in these games. So I'm not as worried about Carter as Pearl is, but I do think I am as worried as he is about their play overall. And this is before the players were lost to COVID, although they were without Sean Couturier, and that's a big loss. I'd like to see this team whole, but I'm not sure we're ever going to see any team whole this year. Between injuries and illness, it's just going to be one of those years where you have to make sure your depth comes through. In talking to the coaches, their problem with the way they're playing seems to be more, yes, Gustafsson has had problems, but seems to be more disappointed with the forwards' defensive play. I get that feeling in talking to the different coaches, whether it be AV or whether it be Mike Yeo or whether it be Lappy or Therrien, or we talked to all of them. I get the feeling they're more upset with the way the forwards are playing than the defensemen defensively. The forwards are getting plenty of goals, and James Van Riemsdyk has been good at both ends of the ice. But there are some forwards who have some pretty good offensive numbers that haven't been that good defensively. And the coaches aren't afraid to point it out. They've pointed out Kevin Hayes a couple of times. He has good offensive numbers this year, but more than once, AV has come out in his press Zooms and said, we still need more from him on the other side of the puck. Travis Konechny was having.
I was just going to say Travis Konechny too.
There are, I mean, and that you saw how many times do you look up and you see a defenseman and he's got nowhere to go with the puck in his own zone. The forwards are all out in center ice. The gap sometimes too big. The centers have got to make sure to come back. That's really missed Couturier. He's always making himself available to the defenseman with a short, easy pass. And Provorov, some of these defensemen can handle that. Others can't. Gustafsson has struggled. He's better than this. I mean, I told you guys, I think it was you, Steel, that Eddie Olczyk gave me a scouting report on him, and he saw him play in Chicago for a year and a half, and he said he's much better. He's an upgrade on what we saw from Shane Gostisbehere the last couple of years, and he hasn't been. He has struggled. So you hope he improves. Justin Braun's kind of what he is. Myers, Sanheim are still getting there. Myers has had games where he's been really good, and again, he missed 4 or 5 games too. Yep. So, but he's been he's been a guy who I'm pretty excited about, to be honest with you. I think Phil Myers might be on his way to being an all-star defenseman. Provorov, solid. Still kind of looking for who he's going to be paired with. He's been Ghost, now lately Myers, obviously early Braun. We haven't been able to replace Matt Niskanen. That has been clearly they're trying to find that right fit for Proby. They're trying to find the right fit then if it is Myers for Sanheim. So there are issues there, but still, again, in talking with the coaches, I think they're more upset with the forwards making it tough on the D and the goalies than they are the D and the goalies. That's the feeling I get.
Okay. I'm actually glad that you said that, because that's one of the things that I wanted to mention as well, too. They haven't sat any of the defensemen. They've sat forwards.
Yeah.
Right. They put forwards on the bench.
Boy, they've had to sit D only because they have 7.
Yeah.
Haig sat and Gustafsson sat.
Right.
And Post was out for a while, but obviously it was COVID related. But yeah, they have clearly made statements with the Konechny.
Exactly. So, but with that, and with what you said, Jim, and that's why I'm glad that you said that, because this is kind of where I'm thinking. I really liked the defense that they put out on the ice for the Lake Tahoe game. I would like to see that defense go forward with the rest of the year with the team. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of
Hag and Gus.
Just hang with me on this, okay? Just hang with me on this, okay? I get why we're doing that, but it's exactly with what Jim said. If the offense would get a little bit more in sync with the defense, because when Gustafsson's out there and he makes those really long passes, that's when they get the turnovers. And that's because the forwards are so far up the ice that they have to make that really long pass, right? So
that's true. I will say Gus is just, at least from what we've seen so far this year, he's a risk taker. He does, in his own zone, think offense over defense sometimes, and that's something that has to change. But he's also one of the best they have at making that pass, steal that long pass.
Yeah. I agree, but not everybody is.
No, and they have several. They have Haig, they have Braun, they have guys who really have to keep it very simple. And aren't going to be making that play on a regular basis.
Exactly.
And Shane Gostisbehere's another. Where are we with Shane at this point? It's tough coming back from COVID, so I certainly wasn't going to be hard on him in the first couple of games back. But he's allegedly healthier than he's been from his knee standpoint in a long time. So we want to start seeing some of that, especially on the power play. So it's not all the forwards, but from a 5-on-5 standpoint where they're getting outshot, it has to do with the forwards as much as it does the defensive goalies. So that's the other thing I want to say is right now the Flyers are clearly in a let's just try to get things together mode. I mean, they're missing 6 players, but 5 top 9 forwards. I mean, if they were to lose, a couple top 6 or top 9 forwards, maybe a 4th line guy and a couple defensemen as their 6 guys, you can probably live with that. This was all centered on top 9 forwards. No team in the league can lose 5 top 9 forwards.
Exactly.
Bruins, unless their goaltender stands on his head, and Carter didn't do that. So that game, people are really worried about the fact they got blown out in that game in Tahoe. To me, it's like, what did you expect? They were missing 5 top 9 forwards.
Oh.
And their goaltender didn't play well. They really had no chance to win that game.
Pretty much.
Given those two.
Exactly.
So I'm not worried about that. They're 8-1-1 against everybody besides the Bruins, but they've been outplayed in a lot of those games. So it's kind of which way do you take this? Because the record is fine. They're fine from that standpoint. As Pro pointed out, they're fine numbers-wise, wins-loss-wise. They've played fewer games now. Some teams are passing them in the standings, but they've got games in hand. So that's not a problem. They're actually their record 8-4-3 is it now? Is kind of flattering given the way they've played in some of these games. That's more of a concern to me has been the process than the results. Now some of the results are going wrong lately, and I'm not as concerned about those. The point against the Rangers, to me, that's a good point. You were missing 5 forwards. The Rangers were just coming off a game where you knew they were going to be playing, really hard. Panarin was. So, the point there didn't bother me, and the loss in the Tahoe game to me was completely expected. So I'm not really worried about the last two games. Now, hopefully, they're going to start to get these players back. Looks like Claude Giroux's coming back. I think slowly but surely over the next week, you're going to see all these other players coming off the COVID list. And then it's going to be, what do you do with the lines? How do you put this all back together?
Yeah.
But nice to see the team with Sean Couturier, remember?
That's
with
another thing, too.
Couturier and those players all together. Then maybe we can get a real assessment of this team.
Exactly. Joe, what do you I think we pretty much hammered just about everything, but give me your 2 cents there on what you think about the Flyers starting off the season. I mean, this is the first time in a really long time that the Flyers have come out of the gates with a winning record. I mean, you look at the last couple of years that the Flyers have come out, and their first quarter or first 10 or 12 for 14 games, and they've had losing records. Okay, until we've gotten AV in. Okay, so this is one of the last year we came out with a bit of a winning record. This year we've definitely come out with a winning record. What do you think, Joe? Give me your assessment of the Flyers so far this year.
Well, Pearlo used the word adversity, where perseverance is another word you could use. This team, you can tell they're a strong team because they persevered through different things. First of all, I agree with Jamie. I saw Jamie tweet, get Sam Morin off the wing. Move him back to defense, please. Friedman, the way you know that needs to happen is Friedman hasn't played wing since he was 9. He looked better than Morin in the Tahoe game on the wing than Morin has looked in any game on the wing. So that's the way that should set alarm bells in the coaching staff's head. We should not put Morin back on the wing. But he also could work better on defense, because if he can get good, stay healthy, be that great shot blocker, physical guy, he might pair better with Gus than anybody that's tried to be with Gus, because he can just stay back, block shots, hit people, and then Gus can just run roughshod and do what he wants to do, where that might work out better, where Friedman actually, I thought, played solid for not playing forward since he was 9 years old, and actually got in on the forecheck and did some nice things in that Tahoe game as a positive. Shushko, I assuming they kept in because he's a straight shooter, and the team doesn't have a lot of guys that go, hey, let me just shoot this right away. We have a lot of guys that look to try to pass it through 4 people when they could have just shot the puck sometime. But I think everything, like Pearlo and Jim both said, is going to solve itself. It's just you have all this adversity you have to overcome right now, and you have to figure out what goes into play. I think what Jamie said, getting an Ekholm or somebody that's a veteran stabilizer would not be the worst thing to do on your defense if you can somehow swing that. Where if you go out to get someone like Mete, he's a good defenseman, but you are clogging, now that I thought about it, your young defense. You have a lot of young defensemen coming up. So you're kind of just adding another guy there, which is not a bad thing, but then you're clogging some guys when they could already be in the NHL. So,
Joe, I'm going to cut you off right there because you just mentioned a name, and I don't stay up on trade rumors because most of them are bogus. Is there a rumor that Ekholm is available?
There is a rumor, yeah, that Ekholm is available.
What would that cost? Because he's a really good player. I mean, he's the Matt Niskanen solution in some ways. I mean, not the exact player, obviously, but he's a really good player. I mean, what would he cost?
It's going to cost you a first rounder and a prospect.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
At least.
No, somewhere around there is probably it. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know.
A good prospect.
I think he's on his final year, isn't that?
If it's in his final year, I don't think it'll be that much.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, but you guys are talking about bringing somebody in as a veteran presence that are potentially could be a replacement for Niskanen. Look, why do we have to keep trying to find a replacement for Niskanen? Why can't we just develop somebody or have somebody or
pick up the phone? Call Justin Williams of Carolina. Excuse me, Matt. Could you?
We've got all of this defensive depth.
They're not ready.
I get it. I get that they're not ready.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think that Braun was a knee-jerk reaction. And I think that Gustafsson was
2 years was. You could have gave him a 1-year deal.
Right. Right.
Maybe,
exactly.
Maybe he had 2 years on the table. That's the reason why they did it, right? Somebody might have already been giving him 2 years, so they had to go 2 years.
Good point.
Oh. Well, sorry. That's what my issues are right there, is those 2 signings right there. That to me didn't make any sense, because with the players that were potentially available at the time, and even players that are available now.
Can I say one thing real quick about the
yeah.
signings? I know somebody, and Jamie's high on this guy too, just because he's not good at defense either, but he's much better than Gus, which is Tyson Barrie's a very good offensive puck-moving guy, but is actually, I don't know if I guess I could use the word adequate on defense, where Gus...
No, he's not.
Yeah,
no,
but okay. Well,
he's better than close.
Here's the low average for Gus. That's kind of Gus plays more like when
you're again. We're judging Gus. This is a guy who had a 60-point season 2 years ago, and actually, again, Eddie Olczyk thinks he's pretty good. So we've seen him at his worst. I do believe. I mean, he's not been good. I give you that. But just ask Toronto, ask some of these teams. Tyson Barrie this year, okay, but his MO is that's not the kind of guy they need.
I'm watching Tyson
much more
this year. I'm watching Tyson Barrie this year. I'm an Oilers.
I would just saying in comparison to if you're going to bring in a guy that's offense, you might as well bring in the guy that is at least a minuscule better sometimes on, especially. But the thing,
we're talking here, guys, and Justin Braun. You guys are hammering Justin Braun. The 6D is not the reason the team's having problems.
No,
agreed.
It has more to do with a mindset from forwards. Yes. Are playing on a regular basis, as well as the defensemen be better in their own zone. But Justin Braun, these are incremental improvements. If we're talking Ekholm, that's more than incremental. That's a guy who might play with or might play in your second pair at the very least. So that's different. But if you're talking about replacing a 5 or 6, that's not going to really change the makeup of this team too much.
Right.
And I don't think I don't think it's fair to change the makeup of this team yet, because we haven't seen this team without, with Sean Couturier or without 5 other forwards missing. We got to let some of these guys get back, and they have now some cushion because they got some of these wins that maybe they didn't deserve, but they got them. So they're not in a horrible position in the standings. So let's see how this goes. I know we all want to talk trades and stuff all the time, but I think they want to see what they have first.
I'm with you on that, but when we started off the season, I said we need to roll with who we have. Okay, because I don't think you're going to be able to bring somebody in now that's going to be able to do anything that's going to affect the team now. I think you need to get the coaching on the same page, and you need to get the players on the same page. And we haven't had a complete team since the beginning of the season, right? In the first 2 games,
but you're right. And I mean, the problem, Ron, we were missing our best player.
Couturier goes out the second period of the first game or whatever, right? And we don't have Sean Couturier. Well, so now the team is scrambling to try to replace somebody like that.
And Patrick just came off a major injury, so you can't expect somebody like him to.
I want to point out, the losses with the non-Sean Couturier team were basically to Boston, almost all of them, all but one of them, and that he is so important, not in the outdoor game because they were missing all those other players, but in real hockey against the Boston Bruins, when the Flyers have a full complement or close to a full complement of players, Sean Couturier is vital against that team because they have a top line, maybe the top line in the entire league. And Patrice Bergeron's a guy that that line, he can really help nullify Sean Couturier. So I'm saying they probably win at least one of those Boston games if they have Sean Couturier. I mean, one was a blowout. The other 2 were really tight. 3 have actually been tight, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I think that he could have been a difference there. And we're talking about all these problems like this team's in huge trouble. I don't think they are. And we really have to see where they are when they have some of these players come back with Couturier hopefully healthy.
Right. Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to say that we're in trouble. It's just that, I mean, Pearlo had mentioned that there were some red flags and
there are red flags.
Right. We've all mentioned.
we got to.
When I said Carter, I was worried about Carter Hart. I'm not worried about whether Carter Hart's going to be a great goaltender or not. I'm more concerned about, what I mean by that, now that you mention it, I'm not really concerned for him. I'm concerned that he is acting that way.
Yeah.
That is a red flag to me towards what the rest of the team is playing like. And now, as far as the forwards coming back more, I watch Philadelphia. I don't see a team where the forwards are not coming back poorly, but not enough based on the defense that they have. I think AV is saying, hey, we don't have Niski anymore. We have to help these guys out until they can integrate into our system. We need to be playing a very defensive system right now so we can integrate our offense. We can't play like we already have the same thing we had before, because we don't. We gotta, Hazy, you gotta come back. Konechny, you gotta come back. They didn't listen. That was the problem. You really have to come back. Not just really have to come back. And he's like,
I asked AV, is it tough to get messages like that across when they're still winning? Because when we were talking about all this, they were still winning games.
Yeah.
And he said, no, these are professionals and they can look past that. I still think if you're winning, and the coach says that to you, you're like, well, yeah, maybe, but we're still winning. Still, at least in the case of Hayes, still getting his goals and points. Konechny, the well went dry pretty quickly in that regard. But some of these guys were still piling up points while they weren't necessarily doing. And it's not all. I don't want to make this sound like they're not trying.
Yeah.
It's sometimes decision making, the East-West play, which AV really detests. You can tell. You have skilled guys. You don't want to take that completely away from guys like Jake Voracek, because he needs that to be effective. But there are times where you just have to get that puck in, simplify, and go get it. Or you just have to shoot the puck instead of trying to make that pass through, as Joe said, 4 guys. That has something to do with defensive play as well. How you handle the puck at the other blue line, in the neutral zone, even at the top of the circles in the other zone, instead of taking that shot, trying to make that cross ice pass. Sometimes it's coming back your way. I think that's part of it too. It's not all effort on back check. I don't want to make this out like these guys aren't trying. Sometimes it's what's going on here. The decision making hasn't always been there. It's been east-west instead of north-south. And the funny thing about that is, before the COVID strike, I saw improvement in that. They were starting to get pucks in. They were starting to play more in the offensive zone. And then you lose all these players, and now it's all back kind of square one. We got to see where they're at when they come back.
I will have to say, though, I was going to say about Braun, because I know people DM me that love analytics and say that he looks good that way. That's what that usually shows is he still is here and knows the position to get to. The problem is you have to pair him with someone that's faster so that guy can get there when he yells at him and says, in front, get there, because he's not as fast anymore. Like, Braun's a good quarterback still if he has a fast guy on his line where he can't get there. It'd be like, Ghost, go there. And, like, he'll be able to get there because Ghost has his healthy knees, like Jim said now, where Braun still plays smart in terms of trying to get to the spaces. The problem is he's not fast enough to get to the right spaces. Right. I don't want to make it like the guy looks like he doesn't know how to play anymore, because he still does. He knows exactly. It's just he's not quick enough to always get to the places anymore. That's the only reason why I would have gave him a 1-year contract, to see if he could match with somebody to then get to the positions and quarterback, instead of a 2, where now next year he's probably just going to be kind of almost like a mentor for people and not play that much if everything goes as well as you hope with the defense and people develop. And then also Friedman, who probably his best game was at forward this year, honestly, is a guy that usually is a lot more civil. Like, he does take bad penalties, but he doesn't do what he did in that one game where you're just like, what the heck against. So I think he will calm back down and kind of maybe be the old adage, keep it simple, stupid type player that just kind of does what needs to be done.
That's why he keeps being put in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. Where like Jamie said, you don't get put at forward when you haven't played since you were 9 if you don't have the work ethic of a Bulldog. Like, that's when you know you have a good work ethic, if the coach is confident enough to say, we're so shorthanded, can you be good on the forecheck, be physical, and smart physical is the key too, at a forward position rather than defensive. And he actually was one of our better looking forecheckers, honestly, I think, in Tahoe. And he didn't play forward since he was 9 years old. So that's a great thing for him to just show how good of a work ethic that man had.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about what we think is going on and what is potentially happening and all that other stuff. And we've hit the quarter mark. We're not a losing team by any stretch of the word. We do have a little bit of adversity that we're facing, and obviously with the COVID and all that other stuff. But so give me your assessment of the team, say, moving forward, like the next quarter of the season, like until we get to the halfway mark. Okay, so we'll start with Jim on this one. Jim, what do you think would be – how does Philadelphia right the ship here a little bit going forward for the next quarter of the season?
In 2021, Steel, I think it's tough to project anything because they're going to play starting Saturday a ton of games. And it's liable to lead to injuries. Hopefully they're past the COVID, but we don't know even that. There's so many unknowns. So I'll put this precursor on it. If they're past COVID, relatively healthy, they have to get into some kind of rhythm. I think it'll also help Carter a lot to get into some kind of rhythm. Goalies need practice. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that the Flyers were missing these players the last two games. Clearly a major factor. They've also had like 2 practices in the last 14 days. And that hurts goaltenders. I mean, they need to feel the puck, see the puck. Yeah, I know they've worked, separately, but even you got to feel it off your teammates' sticks in rush form, that kind of thing. Carter especially, he's a technician. He's got no rhythm right now at all. And that's also the case. Provy's a guy who really needs to be in a rhythm. And there are certain players like that. G's like that, and it's going to be interesting to see what he has coming back. So, I mean, when they get into a rhythm here and start hopefully playing games and keeping the lineup relatively intact, I know there will be injuries, but hopefully not major injuries and not a lot of them. I think this is their chance to get into a rhythm. A couple against Buffalo, get going, and then we'll see. I mean, if they have the same point total the next quarter that they did the first quarter, I'm fine with that.
Same here.
Like that. But the process is likely going to have to be better in the second quarter than it was, for the most part, in the first to put those numbers up there. So we'll see if that happens. I think there's a chance it will, but to predict in 2021 with all the variables out there, it's tough.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go with Pearlo. Pearlo, give me your assessment of what you think we could do here with Philadelphia righting the ship here for the next quarter of the season.
Well, listening to Jim has been freaking awesome because it's really got me looking at things a little differently now. That's why I like doing all of these things. And Joe as well. Joe,
if you say anything with authority, people will believe it.
People will believe it. And Joe the prof was always coming up with stuff that makes me rethink things all the time. So when you think about the shot differential, having the forwards having forwards coming back into the defensive zone. I think Philadelphia, for the time being, to improve moving forward, really have to just, like they're saying, focus defensive as a team, and really don't worry about your point production right now. Scoring goals is always going to be something necessary, but we have to get to the point where our shot totals are down. Carter Hart is a young guy who is an awesome goaltender, and he gives you an era where you want to rely on him, and I think that's kind of what maybe happens with teams when you have like amazing goaltenders like that, is that you have a mindset like, Hart's back there, Carter's back there, so we can risk here, risk there. Well, we don't really have the defense set yet. I'm going to say set yet. I'm going to give Goose a little more because I know you talk about Chicago. We mentioned about it. He did play better in Chicago. I don't know what happened. Things started falling off in Chicago. He went to Calgary. He never did correct himself. obviously they had some people, they thought AV or somebody was able to get them back to that place again. That's why I said I really like to see him play with Proby, because the best defensive forward that they have to be able to get, but I don't know, I'm not there. All I know is maybe that's it. If he has an outlet pass, or a lot of these players have an outlet pass that's a little quicker and more sure right now, might be the best way to go, because the long outlet pass it, like, I hate to keep on bugging the guy, but if Goose has a pass that's sure, he'll make that pass. If he doesn't, he'll make that pass too. So
yeah, that's true.
That's really what it comes down to, Goose, right? So you think when he was playing in Chicago,
he's like that quarterback that tries to gun it through the double team.
Exactly. Who did they have on their team that year? They had, there was Taves, Ladd, you go down the list, Sharp. I mean, these guys came back into the zone. They were that team played solid all around hockey. So if Philadelphia took more of that mantra and came back and gave them outlet pass, guys like Goose, more outlet passes, guess what? Goose is going to look better. All of them are going to look better. And that's really what it comes down to here. Now, I still think you don't want to be playing that defensively going forward all the time. What'll happen is your offense, an offense will dry up, and we see that with some other places. But to get started now, to get us back to where we were before, to get us back to a stable position where everything is in balance, maybe for now we need to go that route, and then we can work more. As most coaches will tell you, start with your defensive game, then we'll integrate offense as we go. It's almost like there's a restart here. I think I did not take into account how much Niskanen meant to this team. Niskanen played a lot of minutes, and that guy could pass anywhere. He was a magician with the puck. People don't really people don't give Niskanen credit for how good of a defenseman he really was. They don't really have at this point somebody to replace that.
He was a puck mover.
So he was a great puck mover. He could make those outlet passes. He could make passes over sticks and stuff like that. What does Philadelphia have now that really can replace that? Nothing. And not nothing, but they really need to play a little more defensively.
Yeah, you mean like right now, like guys still
right now at this moment, and then they can work something else afterwards. AV's a brilliant coach. Once he sees the team, once he gets the team playing that defensive posture, then he can say, okay, here's the risk we can take here, here's the risk we can take here, so we can start putting offense back. But when there's frustration like I'm seeing with Carter Hart because of poor play in front of him, it's hard to judge where you can make those changes right away. So it's almost like a reset, I think, to start right now, and then working offense back in. As far as what we were talking about before, regardless, even if they do get back to the word before, if you can grab Ekholm, I'm with Jim, all over that.
Yeah, all right.
We'll take I don't know what the cost is on that, but yeah, Ekholm is exactly what we're talking about. He's like a Niskanen almost.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways like that. Anyway,
lefty Niskanen.
But I think that'll happen. I really do. Jim said it so well that they looked like they were heading that direction.
Yeah, they were.
Konechny looked like he was like, okay, I got it now. He's got a lot of pride and he wants to do what's right for his team. So I got it now. And then all of this happened. So get back out there, get everybody out on the ice again, get some practices. That's the other thing is, like you said, okay, it's one thing to say we need you to come back, but I played. I need a visual of exactly what you're telling me, especially if it's kind of a reset. It kind of to ingrain it into my mind.
Or something that you're not used to doing.
Right. So if we don't have practice time, it's a little difficult to get the communication into practicalities. Yep. Hopefully they get practices. I think they're going to be absolutely.
Yeah, because sometimes when you don't have practice, instead of communicating, you're almost yelling at each other like, because you're not used to communicating. It's like an outfield that doesn't practice with each other in baseball.
Look at the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've had their issues. They've had guys. First of all, their defense is not as good as ours. Simple as that. The Pittsburgh Penguins, but they seem to have been all right. But if you got Malkin and Crosby, and people say Malkin hasn't played well this year, I kind of disagree. He's just did what everybody has been saying, or what he has been doing, what AB wants him to do in Philly. He's coming back into the zone more. He's playing more of a defensive posture. Pittsburgh is coming back into the defensive end, like you're saying, and helping out their defense, because their defense is really not that great right now. So
they also have to do that because of how Yari's
all of this came into my head as you guys were speaking. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. Yes. Okay. Thanks for that. Now I can.
Yep, there you go.
So anyways, that's where I think.
So Joe, now you're moving forward now with the Flyers. Give me your assessment of how the team can kind of try to right the ship here. I mean, we pretty much talked about a lot of things, but I know you have some other points.
I mean, it is everything we really talked about. You have the defense. Obviously, Farabee's great on both ends. He's going to develop into, speaking of all-stars, a all-star.
Really like what he's been doing, too.
The guy behind me is going to continue to do very well, JVR. This is his best.
Playing the best hockey of his career.
Yeah,
agreed.
I can't believe this is the first time we brought up that.
Yeah. Point to the background behind me.
Yeah.
Patrick, I think, is really going to take off in the second half. I feel like he's moving okay. It's just when you're out for so long, you can't expect somebody to come in and play like the second overall. Like, if he did, that would be more ridiculous than what he's doing. Like I expected him to kind of come back with tampered play and building it up, because if he came back and played like McDavid, you'd be like, what the hell is going on? Like, you would be like Vince Lombardi from the 60s. Like, what the hell is going on out here?
Yeah, right.
Where Shushko is a pure shooter. That's why I think they called him up and integrated him, because he's the guy that just, when you watched him in Belarus, there we go. He was a guy that just shot the puck, and
that's what he did at Tahoe too.
Yeah, he's a guy they need. I think they brought him up because if you see one guy just going catch, shoot, that brings the mentality to other people going, wait a minute, I have a good shot. I should shoot the puck more. And it's like, yeah, I've been telling you that for 3 weeks. But thanks now that you realized it, because Maxine's shooting the puck. But like, that's kind of like what it goes with. It's like the one year that Adam Henrique almost scored 30 goals for the Ducks. The coaching staff literally just said, Adam, we realize you're good at playmaking, but you have a hell of a shot too. Please use it. And then he scored 27 goals. This year he struggled. He was put on waivers, but that's a different story. You have to have guys like Knack has a very undervalued shot by most, because he doesn't shoot it enough. If you get him to shoot more, his goal obviously total will go up. That's just science. Like, if you shoot the puck more and you're not as unlucky as Willman in the minors, where if you were playing a game of post, he would lead the AHL in goals, you would actually get the goals to go in. So that's what they need to do. They have, I think it was smart, actually, now thinking about it, to call up Shushko and let him play before he's definitely ready for the NHL. But he's one of those smart players that can kind of hold his own before he's physically and fully ready for the NHL, because he kind of just can position himself well enough to be okay and also not get rocked. Because before you're physically adept for the NHL, you do not want to get rocked by someone like Char. Otherwise, that's just going to be very bad for your future success.
Slightly.
Yeah, slightly. I only ever show slightly. Or that new kid, I can't remember his name, that the one team has. It's like 6'7", and definitely don't want to buy him or meet him in a dark alley. But you have guys that are good to step up. I still believe a lot in Friedman, so I think he'll probably end up playing defense, obviously, when everyone comes back, and not stay at forward that he hasn't played since he was 9 or 10. But I do like what he was able to do. His work ethic is uncanny, and this team has a lot of guys that are very hard workers. What's the best way to be able to get going and really get the engine turning? To have a bunch of guys that are fully committed to working hard at their craft. That's what the Flyers tend to bring in. You don't bring in, I'm trying to think of the Phil Kessels of the world that are not always the hardest off the ice. When he's on the ice, I'll give him credit. He does go for it.
Yeah, but he's not really working out hard on the off season.
Yeah, his work ethic in the locker room and gym is definitely not that of inspiring people to get in shape. So that's just one thing. If you want to get a guy that's a pure goal scorer, sure, get Phil Kessel, but you're gonna have to set him up. But right. I think that's just the way it is. We have a lot of hard workers. Reamer's playing his best season. People wanting to go in expansion. Now there's no chance in heck you should ever let him go anywhere in expansion. You got Cooch, you got Fairby. Knack's going to step up more, I think. I think everything's going to come to. And also, Bunny hasn't been what we saw last year. He was a little bit more together in his rookie season, where this year he's a little bit more loose all over the place at times, where I think he's going to go back to being that defender, because he's a guy that's good on the defensive side usually, and then this year he's made some of those mistakes we touted earlier, where I don't think that's going to continue to happen, because the big thing is when you line shuffle, you don't build chemistry. You're talking about practice, you don't build chemistry. When you have to line shuffle because of COVID, you're used to being with somebody, and then all of a sudden you have two other guys. So like, you're not building chemistry there either. I think when everything comes back to itself, or if is the operative word that Jim used, then you would be able to really get the engine churning and really get going. And obviously I agree with you too. If you can get Ekholm, you're going to get it. I mean, even if you have to give up a first, you would probably still try to get, because if you think that's one of the ending building blocks of getting all the way to the cup, if that's what Fletcher you're going to give up a first. I mean, hell, Tampa gave up a first for Barclay Goodrow. Nobody else would give up a first. Like, Barclay Goodrow is a good player, but he fits into your system. Yeah. When a guy fits into your system, and I was one of the first people to say it on my YouTube channel, giving up a first for Barclay Goodrow was brilliant, because you needed a guy like him. And look what happened. So if you need a guy like that, sometimes you got to pay up.
You got to give it up. Yeah. I mean, the Steelers.
Joe, I'm going to say two things. First, never give up a first unless you know you're signing the player, though. Yeah, you have to know.
Yeah. If they did sign Goodrow, yeah.
I would never, unless I'm trying to think of an example of a player. Okay, Connor McDavid's available. I might give up a first even if he's but not many. So that's one thing. And the other thing about Patrick, I want to point this out. Because of Couturier's injury, he was playing second line. That's not where they wanted him to be.
Right.
To get himself back, and he was going up against pretty tough competition. You get Couturier back. Okay, we're finally slotting Patrick into a third line role. He's going to see some favorable matchups. And what happens? All the wingers get COVID. So he ends up with Maxim Shushko and some other players on his wing. So and no deference to him, but he's not NHL ready. So you're talking, we still haven't given him what he wants either. Right. He has to be a bigger factor moving forward. He hasn't been a factor at all in the last 7 or 8 games. But in fairness to him, he I think was elevated a little too high when Couturier was out. And then once Couturier came back, he lost his wingers. So we'll see again here in the next, hopefully, week or two as these players filter back in. He'll get some NHL players on his wing, and he'll be in the third line position, and maybe we'll see him take off.
I've been impressed with how he's come out of the gates, especially with how much time that he's missed to begin with.
Well, he's skating well, Ron, but he's not. I mean, he's what is he, 8 straight without a point? He's not producing.
That's 5 points.
I don't notice him. There are some players like. I guess, certain players defensively that if you're not noticing him, it's a good thing. You guys, the way you guys talk about him, probably if Eric Gustafson, you weren't noticing him, he's probably, but Patrick's the guy you want to notice.
Yep. You need to hear his name.
Skill. Yeah. He's got tremendous skill. He can do some great things with the puck. And I haven't been saying his name a whole lot.
No, you haven't.
In recent games. So I do think there's more there, but again, in fairness to him, as I said earlier, the Couturier injury affected him, and then all these.
Yeah, that was the whole trickle-down effect.
I was going to say the trickle-down effect started right away, because I think a guy that could have worked out well with Nolan, who's just a pure skill player, if then you would put a more defensive player on the other wing, is if Frost stayed healthy, he could keep up with the pace. You could just center it to him. He has a good one-time.
Yeah, but then he went down.
He went down right away, and then he also went on the COVID protocol, which was terrible. So hopefully he gets well soon from that after already being injured. So I thought he would pair well with Patrick on a line, just because he's a pure skill guy. He's obviously not the most efficient in his own zone yet, but that's what you're trying to teach him. And that's who I think you could have put. And then you could have put, I don't know, Raffle or somebody like that on the other wing who's very good on both shots. And then you would have been fine there. So I feel like losing a skill set of Frost, which is now all of a sudden getting underrated because of his injuries and stuff, when you look at tweets and stuff, is going to be something that next year, whenever he is able to fully come back healthy, people are going to be like, oh, where did this come from? You're going to be like, well, he had it the entire time. He just
really.
Agreed. So, like, that's all that was, where I think he would have worked out well. Losing him, I think, was actually a bigger loss than people think for Patrick.
Agreed. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, man, we covered the first quarter of the season pretty good. I'd like to try to do this again after we get to the halfway mark.
Wait, we haven't talked about Igor Zamula yet. No.
Oh, hey, if you got to talk about Igor Zamula,
we got.
I think we talked about it.
I could talk about it. I could talk about a million things more now. We're almost over, and I just
Bob put it.
I wanted to talk about Patrick too. I'll do one little thing for Patrick. That's it.
I had
a coach that once told me when I was having difficulties when they put me on forward, because I played defense, but I was actually a better forward, but sometimes it was difficult to make the adjustment. And he'd say, if you're confused at what to do and you have the puck, think shot. If you don't have the puck, hit somebody.
Lance and I talked about this on our show.
Hit somebody. Go hit somebody. If we want to hear your name, hit somebody. If you're making a mistake and you're in the wrong area, at least take somebody out with you. So that's really what. Just engage a little more.
Vicky Bell.
Yeah, he's done really well too.
Bell has games where puck's not doing much for him on his stick, but he'll still get 3 or 4 hits in there.
Exactly. I love that.
He's also one of the highest graded forecheckers. So he was a little bit below, and then all of a sudden, when he started picking it up for 6 straight games, he got right back to being.
Yeah, that's something that something that Lance and I talked about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With this stretch of the COVID, the couple games with all these guys out, as you can see, when he plays with better players, there's more of an offensive upside there. He's adjusted his role to that 4th line role where he's very physical. But you saw this. I've been intrigued by that. I'm wondering if AV hasn't seen a couple things with he and we know Raffle can go up for short periods of time, play with top line players as well. But when we see these players come back, and I don't think it's going to be all 5 or 6 come back at once.
Right.
Yeah, Phil. We don't even know who's had the disease, the virus, and who hasn't. Who's asymptomatic, and
right.
Jake was asymptomatic, but we don't. This is all just by reports. The players who've had it and had symptoms might be a little bit longer coming back, but as they come back, to see the line combinations that AB puts together is going to be very intriguing.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that for sure, because I'm of the ilk that when you build chemistry, you keep it together. You know what I mean? And we haven't been able to do that because we haven't really had a full complement of everyone together all at one time. You know what I mean? So I think with what everybody said moving forward, I think the major thing is that we get everybody back at least to a 90% type of situation, because Frost is gone for the year, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we get 90% back. I think we have a chance to start putting some games together and do with exactly what Jim said and get into that rhythm, because that's exactly what Carter Hart needs. That's exactly what Provorov needs. And I think it's exactly what Nolan Patrick needs, because now when you get into the rhythm, now you get everybody playing in their positions. Now you got Nolan Patrick back down to the 3rd line where he's facing less talent. He gets more scoring opportunities, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And things like that. So I can't wait to do this again at the halfway mark and see what it looks like at that point from what we talked about today.
Yeah, the halfway mark might be in about 2 weeks. They're going to play.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, with how many games they're playing in the 2-week stretch. Yeah.
Well, there you go then. So in about 2 weeks, we'll see you all back here at the same time. Oh man, this has been awesome.
One thing I will say though is we picked up on Dreyoff as a veteran. I don't think we ever thought we'd have to use him this much. He actually played fairly well last year when needed as a veteran, and then this year, I mean, Lake Tahoe's different. Just scratch that. But like in the other game he played fairly well against the Rangers. So I think having a veteran presence like the minor league, the Flyers have always been a good team at making sure they have their veterans for the Phantoms as well as the major clubs since Hextall came in, and now especially Fletcher. Fletcher's pretty darn good at making sure they have the veterans down there. So I think that's a nice job by the organization and management as well to have those guys that you don't want to overplay them and have them have to play like 25 games in the season. But if they have to play like up to 10, they would probably be pretty solid.
You got it. All right. Well, listen, Jim, how can we get a hold of you, and where can we get your class?
You know how you get a hold of me. As far as the class, yes, jjbroadcastingcoaching at gmail.com. Just send an email if you're interested. Give a little background. We'll send you some more information, and hopefully we can get something going.
Yeah, and I highly recommend that if you want to get into even just doing what we're doing, and if you want to get into doing what Jim's doing, actually broadcasting, and you want to get into it, I highly recommend going to his class. You get a chance to learn from one of the masters in the business. Hey, I just call it like I see it. You know what I'm saying? You're the one with the gold trophy back there behind you, right?
Yeah, well, that's just
okay. Well, they don't give that to just anybody. Right?
That's actually for the classes. I should have taken that down. I have to show students that I did do something so that they have some
exactly.
Respect.
But if you get a chance to learn from somebody like Jim Jackson, I suggest you take that opportunity and do so. We are very blessed and lucky that we get to have Jim as one of our guests here. So thank you very much, Jim, for taking the time to join us.
We talked to Andy Andrioff too. We got it all in there. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Make sure I get it. I got to shout out the Phantoms guys.
I don't think we missed
the main Phantoms guy for Flyers Media. I got to shout out the Phantoms guys.
I love those guys. Those guys, you go over a year between games. They pay their dues. They play in the minors, then they get their shots. Those guys. I did 6 years of AHL hockey, and I had so much respect for those players who were kind of up and down, and they're riding the buses, and then they get a cup of coffee, and there's a lot of respect for those kind of guys.
Yeah, for sure. It's not the glamour of the NHL. You know what I mean? So that's where you pay your dues. Pearlo, how can we get a hold of you, and where can we get all your great information?
Greatest website in the land, SteelFlyers.com, All Sports Network. Man, go check it out. It's freaking amazing. You can also find me on my NHL Pearls of Wisdom on the YouTube there. I do some picks videos and stuff like that you might enjoy. And I will be on with John from Off the Wall Hockey tonight to watch for the Washington-Pittsburgh game. We'll be doing a live feed on that. I highly recommend you go check that out.
Yeah, and you also got your show that comes out every day, 3 to 5 Eastern time.
I was just about to mention, today and every day during the week from 3 to 5 Eastern. We have great guests on there. We talk everything hockey, all the teams. We discuss everything. We discuss the games from the night before, the games coming up, and all the rumors and mostly not really rumors, but facts that have happened, trades that have happened, and a little bit of like what may happen too. So
there will be frolic.
It's a lot of fun. There will be definitely abundance of frolic. That's for sure.
Professor Joe, hey, give us the Cliff Notes.
Sports Fanatic News is my YouTube. jjborek26 is my Twitter. If you want to talk through DM, that's the most adequate way to do it because I don't check Facebook DMs that much. The next best one is Borek6789. I started giving out my Instagram now because it's easy to message through Instagram. It's a lot easier than some of the other platforms. So that's my Instagram. That's my Twitter. Sports Fanatic News is the YouTube. Everybody enjoy all the great hockey action today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much. You can check both of these guys out at SteelFlyers.com. They each have their own page there. That's www.steelflyers.com/sports fanatic news, or you can go to www/links NHL Pearlo Wisdom. They each have their own page there. Also, I recommend you checking out Jim for his broadcasting school. Check that out for sure. I'm SteelFlyers from the All Sports Network. You can catch me on Twitter at SteelFlyers52. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Appreciate it. Just remember, stay safe, stay strong, and hang tough.